Hi, everyone. My name is Elise, and I'll be leading this webinar today. Can everyone hear me? Okay, thanks, Isabel. So we'll go ahead and get started. Um, Thank you again for sharing your day with us and also for your time today. I'm Elise Tuck. I'll be your host today, and I will be, sorry, one second here. Sorry for the delay there. Um, I'll be your host today. I am the Chief Wellness Officer for Blissful Circuit Wellness. I've had the privilege of designing workplace wellness and mental health programs for nonprofits, healthcare organizations, and startups for over 15 years. Our webinar today is about 45 minutes, and our topic is burnout and balance, mental health support for working parents and caregivers. If at any time you need to drop off, please know that we will be sending you the recorded webinar and some resources via email. And it will also be posted on our website and LinkedIn page. And you can find that at Blissful Circuit Wellness. So go ahead and get started. So today, our presentation is really a collaboration of research from UC San Diego and the help of our clinical staff here at Blissful Circuit Wellness. We do have a full team of mental health professionals and social workers who counsel on this topic on a daily basis. Blissful Circuit Wellness is a research and neurological based employee assistance program. We're headquartered in Denver, and we provide mental health counseling, nutrition coaching, and social services like housing, transportation, and food access. We also provide family support and case management for a number of needs. If you're here, thank you, but also congratulations. I know that time spent away from caregiving can be really hard to find. Learning and putting yourself first is very difficult and sometimes feels pretty much next to impossible for many of us. Um, why this matters today, it really is important that you're here because while there are many mental aspects of caregiving, we're also here to talk about how poor mental health can lead to poor physical health. Full-time caregivers, and that really looks at like 9+ hours a day. They have a higher mortality rate than other people, actually 51% higher. And there is a direct link to cardiovascular disease, so we'll talk about that. That information comes to us by a group of researchers from UC San Diego School of Medicine who specialize in caregiving, especially for Alzheimer's. The study also reported that for every year of caregiving, there is a 4% increase in cardiovascular disease. Today, we hope that you'll leave with a really clear understanding of your own caregiver burnout, how to overcome mental and physical impact of stress, tools to build resilience, and skills that you can actually use. So, what does caregiver burnout actually look like? This is going to be very familiar to most of you, but it is really more than exhaustion. Some of the signs include chronic irritability, a numbness or emotional flatness. So, really just not registering sad or happy or angry at all, just be kind of flat baseline trying to get through the day. Forgetfulness or poor focus, and then feeling like you're always failing someone, which is really, really tough. Due to the stress from the guilt, irritability, and depression, you might also experience physical symptoms arising from your poor mental health. Mental and physical well-being really grow or decrease in tangent together. So, for example, insomnia, especially chronic insomnia, where you're not able to sleep, very well for months at a time. Maybe you're getting 3 to 4 hours a night. That is going to cause your blood pressure to rise. Um, your heart might beat faster during the day, your face might flush, or maybe you just feel out of breath doing really simple activities. Um, and why burnout hides. So, why do we not see burnout sometimes on people? Because there aren't always the physical symptoms. So, many of us may thrive for a time as being seen as a high achiever, the person who does it all, the person who has it together and leads the pack every day. There are societal expectations here in this country around being successful and modeling leadership, not to mention the idea that we need to take care of our family before ourselves. And a lot of caregivers struggle with that and put themselves on the back burners. Also, many countries here in the US and around the world, they look down on third-party care and they have the expectation that the family is going to manage the health care of the parents or the kids. And of course, we have gendered pressure. Women historically have been classified as caregivers. They have both external and internal expectations to manage the family and support the family. But it's not just women. I mean, men are increasingly becoming caregivers. 1 out of 3 family, the men are the caregivers. And often the burnout for men is in silence. There's a feeling that they need to be strong and exude kind of a calm external while struggling inside. So, some real talk here. There are going to be days when you're overwhelmed and still have to keep going, right? So, let's name that reality. Sometimes you can't just stop and you really need something to hold on to. And that's kind of where myths come into place. Um, a first myth might be, I should be able to handle this. The reality here is you are human, you're not a machine. Burnout is not a personal failure, it is a systems issue. It means there are not systems around there to support you and to make sure that you are healthy. Another myth might be asking for help means I'm not strong enough. This is a huge stigma with caregivers and honestly, everybody else who's struggling out there who isn't even a caregiver. It takes strength to recognize your limits. Everybody has a different level of energy that they can give, and that might vary from day to day. Help seeking is a leadership skill. Knowing your self and when to ask for help is super important, and we're going to talk about that. I just need to push through. Another huge myth for mental illness and caregiving. Chronic pushing leads to long-term depletion. Rest is going to be a big part of your resilience, not the opposite of it. And then other people have it worse, so I shouldn't complain. This might seem familiar to you. It's a very old school mentality. Even my parents taught me this kind of thing, and I think a lot of people still live with this kind of guilt today. Pain is not a competition. You are allowed to feel overwhelmed and still ask for support. Just because there are other people out there who are doing more than you does not mean that you do not have access and permission to feel and live through your own emotions. And that's a very healthy thing to do, is experience that sadness, experience that stress, and work through that. And then finally, if I drop the ball, everything will fall apart, right? Caregivers are the huge multitaskers of the world. They're taking care of people, they're managing medicines, they're managing schedules. They're making sure that food gets on the table. You're allowed to be supported and you don't have to carry it all to feel worthy or responsible. Um, there's lots of little things that we're doing every day, but if one thing falls to the wayside, the whole system is not going to fall apart. So, two things I'd really like for you to take away here today are you don't need to pretend that you're thriving when you're actually just holding the pieces together. Survival is not weakness, it is wisdom under pressure. We're going to talk on confidence and resilience and learning that wisdom for the tough days. And the second part is you don't need to earn rest, you just need it. So those long days, maybe you just feel like you need to get in a nap or something. You don't need to earn that nap, right? You just need it. And that's going to be healthy for your mind and your body. So there's a couple pieces of the emotional landscape for caregivers. Of course, there is the positive, right? You're caring for your loved ones, you're spending time with them, um, you're being a wonderful part of the family and a support system. But there's also a lot that comes with that. It's the guilt, the resentment, and the chronic stress. First and foremost, the best way to take a hold of your emotions is to improve your mind. Just being here today will help you gain confidence because you'll have more knowledge about the issues you're facing. Overcoming guilt can be really difficult, but the answer here is finding confidence and resilience in yourself. If you have the confidence to figure out your most significant problems, it is going to lower your stress levels, which cause the guilt. Confidence is not something people are born with. Okay, a lot of people think that, oh, that person just came out of the womb confident and they're amazing and they do this and that. It is a learned skill and it's actually something that everyone can do. Confidence at its most core definition is really simply to take action, to make a move, try something, do the thing that you've been thinking about obsessively but are just afraid. Um, it's kind of like Nike's just do it. And that's really what confidence is like taking those thoughts in your mind and then creating an action out of that. And the more that you're able to take that action, the more confident you'll be. This confidence, it's going to lead to a peace of mind. Without peace, we do find resentment building. Resentment is a really natural emotion to feel as a caregiver. You do not need to feel guilt about this emotion. When you give and give, it's natural to feel that you're not being taken care of yourself. And it is not something to feel terrible about. So we can strengthen our mind in many ways, but one key factor is understanding how chronic stress messes with your brain. And that is all led by a hormone called cortisol. So, what is cortisol? Cortisol is a hormone that releases into our bloodstream when we feel stress. It's a natural response to the flight or fight instinct. So everybody has it on varying levels. And what it does is it gives us the energy to power through tough situations. Um, However, over time, if you have constant stress, so if you're never able to relax and it's just kind of a revolving 24/7 feeling of stress or being behind, on the brain side, high cortisol levels lead to increased anxiety. They can impair your memory and focus. It reduces emotional regulation like decision making or impulse control, mood instability, and a concept called rumination, which basically means replaying stressful situations in your head. This is something that I personally deal with. I know that when I have a busy day and I'm a caretaker, when I go to bed at night, all of those thoughts that I didn't get to think about before because I was busy doing, they all come crowding in and crashing in when I put my head on my pillow at night. And that is truly what rumination is, kind of replaying that stuff in your head, even when you're trying to get rest. On the physical side, high cortisol, sleep is disrupted. So a lot of people deal with insomnia. There's weight gain, and you may have food cravings. It also causes immune system suppression. So, having constant high cortisol in your bloodstream is literally going to weaken your body's ability to fight illness or recover. It can also cause hormonal imbalances, so lower energy, lower libido, and poor mood. And then we already talked a little bit about blood pressure and heart rate, but that is something that cortisol will naturally elevate. So basically, if you're having some issues with one, two, or all of these things, you can blame cortisol. We can overcome stress and elevated cortisol through a number of ways. Today, we're going to focus on nervous system regulation, setting boundaries, self-awareness in your environment. There are also ways to regulate your cortisol through nutrition, and we're going to have a full webinar dedicated to nutrition and physical fitness coming up next month. It really does deserve its own segment. So, according to Steve Magnus is an executive coach. He teaches at the C level. He's also an Olympic long distance running coach and has been researching resilience for many, many years. He tells us that social bonding is the number way to rebound after a tough day. So we're going to kind of talk about some small practices that create big shifts. For the social aspect, I mean, even at the grocery store, little chats and micro interactions like a smile or eye contact create trust. It can feel belonging and release oxytocin. Oxytocin is the neurochemical that makes us feel human. However, as all you caregivers know, we deal with the pressure of being everywhere at once. Saying no is definitely a positive way to protect your energy, and being in tune with what gives you energy versus what zaps your energy is probably one of the most important self-discoveries you can have as a human, to recognize where your input and output goes for the energy that you have. And I'm not talking about just physical energy that you get from coffee. I'm talking about mentally and spiritually. That's different for everyone, but it really applies to social situations. So make sure you protect your boundaries, but say yes to the ones that are most pleasant events for yourself. It's common for caregivers to isolate because they feel that they don't have the energy or they don't feel like it's a priority. But I am telling you here today that oxytocin boost that you get from others is just what you might need to balance your days and keep you from depression. My mom is a caregiver to both her mom and my father's mother. She actually practices this very well and recently decided to call or text people on their half birthday to make sure that she stays in touch with people that she doesn't talk to on a daily basis. And it's really small things like this that can make our world bigger and help us realize that we're not alone. So, a social practice here is before agreeing to anything, say, let me get let me check my schedule and I'll get back to you. And the reason why this works is because it builds the habit for yourself of having a thoughtful boundary instead of people pleasing. Caregivers are notorious people pleasers, right? We want to do everything for everyone. We want to say yes, and sometimes we feel guilt if we don't say yes to everything. Um, if you do this and just kind of take a step back and say, hey, let me get back to you, you're going to protect your time and energy without guilt. And that's really essential for long-term resilience. As far as the body goes, when stress becomes chronic, your body never returns to baseline. So when you've got stress around the clock, your cortisol levels are going to remain elevated, and they don't really have a chance to lower until you relax and find a way to come back down. So like we kind of said, I mean, cortisol stays elevated. It's going to disrupt your sleep, your appetite, immune function, um, digestive issues, brain fog. I probably don't have to tell you this, right? We went over this. And I'm sure that you probably see it and feel it. So a really good way to get those cortisol levels back to a normal level is to practice 5 minutes of either shaking, stretching, or maybe dancing to music. So literally just 5 minutes of stretching your arms, stretching your legs, maybe just kind of shaking your body, or dancing to whatever music that you have. And it works because it's going to discharge stress from your body in the places where cortisol often lives. And you're basically retraining your body to release the tension instead of store it. So, we're going to talk as well about a couple of small practices for mind and environment. Um, According to a lot of neurology research that's out there right now, it is literally poisonous to your brain to stay silent when things are troubling you. The brain perceives social conflict. So social conflict meaning like getting in a fight with somebody, or like having a tough conversation, or maybe contradicting somebody, anything like that, which, it will trigger your stress response. So your heart rate's going to get elevated, your blood pressure, and it can even impair your memory and decision making. So when you have that confrontation with somebody, and you kind of lose what you want to say, and maybe you think about it later and you're like, oh, I wish I would have said that. That would have gotten my point across better. It's literally because of cortisol. Um, it's going to impair and give you a little bit of brain fog when you're in kind of that flight or fight mode of the tough situation. And high anxiety for too long weakens GABA. GABA is a chemical messenger in your brain that tells you to slow down or relax. So this is a good chemical messenger. It produces a calming effect. When we tell our truths, right? Our truths meaning what we want to say, what we feel is important to us, what we believe to be true, and that's important for our understanding of our social conversations with people. We also withhold oxytocin, so that hormone of trust and connection. When you withhold your truth like that over time, the oxytocin really frays, and you're gonna lose kind of a sense of belonging and authenticity, and that's at work and both at home. And then moving on to our final piece here, environment. So soft light, soothing colors, minimal noise. Haha to the parents out there. I know that's tough to find, but soft light, I mean, the new LED lights are really bright, right? The overhead lighting that sometimes comes with apartments or condos, those can be really tough on our senses. And so I would encourage you, whether it's at work or at home, to maybe get some lamplight for your bedroom or wherever your personal space is. Soothing colors. These can help lower cortisol levels. It slows the heart rate and it actually helps the body repair itself to have that soothing environment. Nature is one of the best environments for calming stress. So just 20 minutes in a green space can significantly lower cortisol levels. If you can't get outside or maybe live in a big city, even listening to sounds like birdsong or flowing water is going to stimulate your vagus nerve, which helps regulate mood and calm the body. So, we're going to kind of move and pivot a little bit towards work and asking for help. And this might be at work or with your support system. And I think it's really important here to mention that there is shame and stigma that sometimes comes along with asking for help, right? I mean, we talked about that a little bit earlier, but it's really paying attention to some of the red flags to decide when it's time to reach out because this really does impact our physical health, like we talked about before with the cardiovascular disease and some of the other things that come with the heightened cortisol levels. So maybe your work performance is slipping. This can look like a number of different ways. Maybe you're having that brain fog and you're missing a meeting or you forget to prepare for a meeting, you forget to reply to that email that you have flagged, or maybe it's just, absenteeism. Maybe you're just not able to have the energy to get out of bed to get to work. Um, and then there's chronic physical symptoms. So, that doesn't just come out in, shortness of breath or elevated heart rate and blood pressure. This could be like little things like a headache or back pain or a lot of tension in your shoulders. So pay attention to your body. And then emotional disconnection. So if you're not able to relate with people anymore, maybe you've lost your empathy and maybe you're talking to somebody at work or a friend and they're like, I'm having this great week. And you're like, oh my God, I haven't had a great week in months. That is an emotional disconnection. And so when you start to feel like that, where you're like, maybe there's some resentment building, and you don't kind of share the same problems as your social group, that's time to reach out because that means there's something that you'll need to address. And how to bring it up at work. So we actually have a lot of resources and training around this, which I can share with you after the webinar today. But the kind of simple things I want you to know is how to bring this up maybe with your manager or human resources at work. So the first thing you're going to want to concentrate on is knowing your goal. So before you even book the meeting, before you even breach the topic with that manager, you're going to want to come to the conversation and think about what do I want out of this conversation? So, does that mean you want understanding from them? Do you just want to communicate what's going on in your life? Or do you need something like physical? Like, do you need an accommodation? Do you need, like I said, light bulbs in your workspace? Do you need to move out of that open workspace? It's too loud for you and you need a private office or something like that. I mean, there's so many different accommodations and then decide how much to share. So, under no circumstances do you ever need to tell people about your own diagnosis or anybody that you're caring for their diagnosis. All you need to say is that, I'm dealing with some stress. You can talk about more of like those mental symptoms. if your employer or manager asks you about a diagnosis, that is a HIPAA violation and it is against federal law. So know that you do have rights. And that kind of moves on to knowing your rights. And then bring a plan. So, like I said, you're going to want to know your goal and then bring a plan. Bringing a plan means not just coming to, I don't want to say complain, but coming with a problem and not offering solution. The reason that it's important to offer a solution is because you're going to be able to maintain control around that conversation. So if you already come with some ideas for how to solve it, it's going to be a lot easier for you to like maintain control over that situation. And then, of course, don't wait too long. This is really tough. Not everybody recognizes when burnout is coming to a head. But pay attention to those red flags like we talked about before. Talk to people in advance and let them know, what you're gonna need. If you wait too long and it becomes a performance issue, it is gonna be a lot more difficult to talk with an employer about. And I'm really sorry to say that that's just sort of the existence of the American workforce. So make sure you don't wait too long. And then we've got a couple more here. I did want to provide you a few resources here. If you're looking for accommodations and you want to understand what you can ask your employer for, a really great resource is called askjan.org. So that's ask and then JAN.org. And this is a national free service run by labor relations professionals. And you can type in any kind of accommodation or disability that you might need or have, including mental health, to come up with ideas on what you might want to ask for at work. There is usually a formal process to reasonable accommodation, but it is required at the federal level to offer this. And so we do have a lot of resources around that. If you would like to ask some personal questions, we can also answer those. Make sure that you do use your employee assistance program if you have one and your benefits. Here in the US, of course, we pay a lot of money out of pocket for our benefits. And a lot of people don't actually discover what they have available to them besides just going to the doctor for a checkup. So you may have access to free counseling sessions, family resources, crisis support, nutrition advice, somatic therapy, chiropractor, other holistic services. So ask your human resources provider or your benefits provider about this. They are there. It's literally their job to tell you what your benefits are that you pay for. So make sure you ask. A couple more resources. I am going to be sending this out via email at the end of the webinar, but this is a list of national and I'm based here in Colorado of resources that are available to caregivers and anyone dealing with a mental health issue. All of these resources are completely free. And they actually have really wonderful support groups and access here. So I'll share that as we move on. A lot of people are not aware how much is out there for free to support them. And then finally, we just want to let you know that you deserve support too. You are doing more than enough. Asking for help is a strategy, not a weakness. And, if you want to think to yourself, like, what's one small thing you can reclaim today? Maybe it's the 5 minutes of stretching. Maybe it's the breathing for 2 minutes. There's lots of ways that you can reclaim and make kind of small impacts on your confidence. Like I said before, we are going to send out the recording of this webinar. It will also be available on LinkedIn and our website. And we're going to send out some tools and more resources for caregivers. Here is our contact information. So our website is blissfulcircuitwellness.com. This is also my personal email. Again, my name's Elise, and I am the Chief Wellness Officer here at Blissful Circuit Wellness. And I just want to thank you so much for your time today. I know it's really tough to find time for yourself, but it can do so much for your mental health. So kudos to you.